Yes, here we go. It is the Bhoycie Bros Live. Nearly said the TNF. I'm not used to saying that. It's the Bhoycie Bros Live, and it is Wednesday night we're on this week. As I say, it will change sporadically, just depending on what we're up to, what the mood we're in. But yeah, thank you to all yous who are already on live, and hopefully a lot more of yous will join us as the show goes on. Remember, if you are live, give us a wee like, give us a share, buy some hair, all that carry on. But yeah, the likes and the shares and promoting the bus. It's not your gift to do that. It's really my job. So if you're feeling generous, then hit that wee share button below. It'll take you 2 seconds and it can get spread over your socials. And it does help massively with the algorithm. See, if you want to help the YouTube algorithm, just hit a wee thumbs up. Or, like I'm bothered, hit a thumbs down. Makes no odds to me. It gets that more traction and it makes us more likely to appear on others' YouTube news feeds. Of course, if you're a subscriber, please, as I say, hit the bell, because you could have been waiting for us on Tuesday. If you hit the bell, then you'll be notified before we are going to go live, which, as I say, will be pretty random as the season goes on. Highsports.com do all that, do tasty pastry treats, and they come with 12.5% off when you use the discount code BUS1888 at the checkout. Woo! Jonathan, it's been a great journey on this bus so far. And I'd like to share some news.
Oh, yes.
I would like to share some news because we've been contacted, Jonathan. Contacted. Direct. Not even the bus channel. Just my personal one, mate. They fucking know. They know. Still got it, mate. I've still got it somehow. Somehow, I think. Let me see if I can share this with you. Look at this. So I was contacted, and people will love this. So if I bring it up on the screen, look, the Football Content Awards.
Oh,
You know the ones. It's like some could say, it equates to a European Cup. Up to them, of course, if you win one. But they've said, hello, Russell, hope you're well. Just a quick heads up, the nominations are open for this year's Football Content Awards. It's free to enter. I mean, I wouldn't be paying. We'd love to see your work submitted. More info is on our website, which you can find on our pinned post. So what about that, Jonathan, eh?
Oh, what an opportunity for the bus to move into new waters, new roads for the bus potentially here to drive on into.
Everyone's, thinks that, we're just going unnoticed under the radar, like we're part of this conference league of other podcasts, you know what I mean? They cut about, but I bet they weren't getting FCA invites like that, Jonathan. We're up there with the big boys again. We are so back. We are so back.
So back. Hey, so back. And in fact, 3 weeks, Russell, and this is what happens. This is why you pay the big bucks to have me back on your show.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And Football Content Awards want a bit of the bus. And as everyone knows, when it comes to me, I only have one reply. When it comes to mainstream events like this, the FCAs, I politely said, thanks for letting me know. I don't think our show would tick the boxes the judges would look for. See ya.
Bye-bye.
I am, mate. I'm not interested in doing any of that shite. Do you know what I mean? We are here, so we speak our truths. We, a football club that we absolutely love following, a football club that we are obsessed with, and that we enjoy being free from worrying about whether that's a bit MSM worthy, whether it's free of worrying about getting into press conference, media access, free from worrying about whether it would tick boxes in a judgment category by things like the FCA's. Oh no, the bus does not pander to any of that shit. That's not who we are. So they were politely declined as we continue on our rock and roll bus to, whatever destination it may land. To be fair, they replied again and they said, like, no problem. Don't worry about it, man. I'm like, fucking, they know what I'm they know they were fucking pushing it, getting Bhoycie at the FCA's. Come on. I've not bought my leopard print shirts for that nonsense, mate. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We can do better than that. You're better than that, as Chris Sutton would say.
You're better than that. Yeah.
You're better
So
than that.
not my thing whatsoever. That's for other folk to get involved in. I think a lot of the stuff that a lot of the fan media do, whilst is amazing in a lot of cases, I think a lot of it is geared towards, and by the way, a lot of it's their job. So I get that. It's your job. But I do understand, like, when it's your job, you've got to try and maximize the business, as it were, and the profile of it. I will give up doing this the day I feel like I'm saying things that I think will curry favour in certain quarters or get sort of recognition from people, who don't know half about as much as about Celtic as, well, all the viewers on this place does. So, we've patched the FCAs, and that's who we are on the Bhoycie Bus. Anyway, it's not my job to do opening gambits. That's over to you.
Well, Russell, we are now in the summer of superheroes, and quite frankly, Celtic are in need of a fantastic 4 signings of their own. What we have seen across the city is Rangers have signed up Ant-Man, but even Clark Kent wouldn't have been able to save them, as the men of Steel proved to be further kryptonite for the Rangers on opening day of the season, as they fell short for the 3rd season in a row at being unable to pull off a victory. Spider-Man may well have been flying around Glasgow this week. Perhaps Mr. Lawwell should speak to him, because ultimately, with great power does indeed come great responsibility. And at the moment, it would appear Celtic don't even have a Scooby-Doo as a signing. It leads me on to a famous superhero quote that you can either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become a villain. And we're at a point in time where Peter Lawwell will have to make his own decision on that front. It could, Russell, be a very long season ahead. Let's just hope that the end credits have the Hollywood feel to it, with the good guys back on top.
That is genius. That is genius. That was really good. To get kryptonite into any opening gambit, we probably could have done £100 bet on that before and I would have paid it. Do you know what I mean? Just to go, right. Impossible. Impossible. That was superb. And of course, a lot of truth in it, Jonathan. What was that quote about? Be there long enough to become the villain? Tell me that quote.
You can die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. I think Peter Lawwell's on a fine line with that one.
Not that we're advocating him to die, by the way. Just FYI.
Yeah.
Just because
It's a family-friendly podcast,
a Batman-friendly.
Batman-friendly. We're inclusive to all.
Yes.
Batman fans, Spider-Man fans, Peter Lawwell fans, Celtic fans, whoever you've got, we're here for everyone,
We are.
But he is at a place now, Peter Lawwell, where he is risking his legacy, I feel.
What do you make of there's still a lot, and I don't want it to sound, I'm against them in a negative way or a bad way. It's each to their own how they view Celtic and what they think they're watching. What's your views though on the fact that still just seems to be this incredible amount of people that, bear in mind, if you do a timeline of events, when Lawwell returned as non-exec chairman, there was people like myself, and I'm not trying to make it about me, but it's just two talking right now, so I'm going to use me as the example, right? Who made it abundantly clear at that point, non-executive chairman is the only person with chairman in the title at Celtic. Therefore, he is by default the chairman, because no one else has chairman in their title at Celtic. That had, what I'm going to guess is, a huge percentage of the same people now, dissing that and saying, don't be silly, non-exec means non-exec, man. Well, what the fuck? No one else is the chairman, so of course he's chairman. Now, what we're being told by the same people is, chairman doesn't take anything to do with football matters. All right. If that was the case, what was the obsession with Celtic firstly going out their way to call him non-exec chairman? Secondly, you same voices telling us all that non-exec chairman means he's got nothing to do with it. Then when you've got to accept now Celtic acknowledges the chairman, he's just called Peter Lawwell chairman. At what point do you understand and do you accept defeat in your kind of like, I can kind of almost empathize with it. This faith you've got, Celtic wouldn't dupe you. And that's what this is. You've got this blind, not even blind, just cemented faith because you love everything Celtic so much. You've got this faith that but they wouldn't lie to us. So see if it says non-exec, that means non-exec, right? Well, it doesn't though, because it means chairman, and Celtic have now joined Bhoycie's side in that argument. Now I know there was many others, and said, yeah, you're right, fuck it, just call him chairman. Fuck it. He is the chairman. Of course he's the chairman. He's the only one with it in the title. Now it's, well, chairman doesn't actually mean anything. Chairman doesn't get involved in football matters. Okay. What I can tell you though is, a leaning voice of authority of 21 years has a controlling say in the minds of those who are making football decisions. And by that I mean, if we're seeing the same movie window after window that we did when Peter Lawwell was chief exec, and again, by the way, not director of football in any of these seasons, de facto director of football, I think he would love to have been that if he could. But he basically just took that mantle anyway, didn't he, when he was the chief exec?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what Peter Lawwell's title is, guys. When Peter Lawwell's there, Celtic do the same things window on window. And that's where my frustrations really lie. He's been there and has been there far too long as it stands. This is a guy who, in my opinion, began to rip up the script that no one could believe we had with Brendan in situ first time round. Now, many talk about boring. The football become boring. Would that football have been as boring with an attacking fullback like Castagna in the building? Would it have been as boring with John McGinn bombing in midfield? Maybe giving Scott Brown a rest? Maybe taking Scott Brown's shut earlier than what people... Scott Brown ended up playing until he was 35 and a half for Celtic, And in the year we were going for 10 in a row. But these things have been boring. I'm not so sure. See, when you see the same repeat after repeat window and the same guys in that room, don't tell me he's not got an influence based on what job title Celtic give him. Don't be so fucking naive. And the best bit is, you've pivoted on the job title being an important factor because it was the weapon that was used 2-3 seasons ago, where it was, read it again, he's non-executive. He's now, Celtic never announced once that he'd moved from non-executive to chairman. Did they? No, they didn't. They duped you. They took the piss out of you. They relied on your faith and your love for the club. They don't, and they wanted you to shoot down those with most cynical eyes like myself who could see the woods from the trees. No problem at all. Who understands slightly how the construct of a business might look and what wordplay definitely looks like I'm not bad that way. And I feel that they rely on the divide and the support massively to help their cause. It's time for people to realise that when you're seeing the same window after window, the same transfer window, time after time, year after year, winter to summer, summer to winter, profit after profit, more money in the bank every single year, year on year, less spent year on year, more and more. What do you think Celtic's plan is with it then? What do you think's good about this? When me and Matt went through it, I don't know if you watched Thursday's show, Jonathan. It was quite fun with Matt. I think we got to conclusion. My maths maybe wasn't the best. I think it was 4 out of 12 we worked out Celtic qualified for the Champions League via qualifiers. Now, since then, of course, we've been handed what can be seen as a kind draw in Europe with Slovan Bratislava. But is that the point? What we also seen was the start of a league title defence and an 86-minute winner. And we've seen Yang in the starting lineup. It's not all about Yang, but that quality of player is such a downgrade from where we were as a football club. Even Angie's second season. You know, you go back through Celtic teams of our generations, he's nowhere near that level. And yet, it's now James Forrest we're relying on all over again, who everyone their auntie had is not good enough anymore. Not myself as much. I think as he's got older, he became a more useful tool for the team, a more useful tool for the squad, I think, than ever. I think he's become a better player as he's got older in terms of his all-round game. But what I will say is, when it comes to, you look at 0-0 opening day of the season, what the reaction to that would have been when you combine it with the window and the striker, the only striker we've signed since selling the poster boy of Celtic forwards of the last potentially decade, in Kyogo, he doesn't get a sniff. It's crazy what we're watching right now. You have to accept that what you're seeing is, yes, it's the fifth, seven more installments of these windows than there is the Fast and Furious. Put it that way. But the one thing with Celtic is, it's not the Fast and Furious, it's the slow and laborious. That's what these windows are. And that's me done.
Yeah, I mean, when you're looking at Celtic, it is a very much a common trend that has kind of been happening in all these windows. There's not really any signs of this one looking like it's going to be any different from what's happened in the vast majority of them to this point. And it all has to come back. There has to be some common themes in it, and that's kind of where I was going at the start of the show with Peter Lawwell, as he is the common denominator that has been around for so many of these failed windows, that there has to come a point where he is going to end up with his legacy questioned, I think. And I'm not even sure what he's hoping to gain from a footballing perspective by still being in the building, because it's quite clear, based on what we've seen over many years now, that his interest appears not to be there as much in terms of the footballing operations of the club. His interest seems to be more about making sure there's a higher amount of cash in the bank, and with no real clarity of what that's being saved for. And there's things we could potentially be turning around and saying to ourselves, it's not going to be spent on players. If he even wants to turn around and say, for example, we're keeping this money back because we're going to be doing a lot of work at Celtic Park, for example, as something that they needed to keep money back for, and they were going to redevelop the stadium slightly to make it larger, something along those lines. You could have at least been like, well, I maybe don't agree with it, but at least then there's communication happening as to what's being done with this money.
We are privy, though, of course, because there's a John Duncan, not the one who's watching live right now, because I did see John Duncan, who was right watching the bus right for the start. I will try and find these avatars. Not this John Duncan, there's two John. There's only two John Duncans. But there's one who just comes in the chat every now and then. Sometimes it's after the show, whatever. He's like, I've told you for years, all the money's for the new main stand. What are you not getting?
Mm-hmm.
And he says, that's why we're the best run club in Europe. And I was going, where's that new stand? As for
Yeah.
new players, you keep telling me about new stands. Neither of us have got what we want.
No,
We're both sitting empty-handed arguing about fuck all. What's the
exactly.
point of those?
That's what I mean. It's all about communication there. If it's a question that they're using the money for something else away from the playing squad, then if they were to communicate that with the supporters, fair enough. You maybe wouldn't agree with what they're proposing to do with the money elements of the sport, but at least then you would understand, well, this is why they're doing what they're doing. It's to do a refurb of the stadium, to make it larger, get more fans in, since the waiting list is through the roof at the minute. And you could understand, in some respects, the logic behind that. But what we're actually finding at the minute is not only is there no communication as to whether or not anything is happening on that front, but we're also seeing that the playing squad is now seriously just underprepared for me for this upcoming season. We're in a worse position now than we were when we played the Scottish Cup final a few months ago, in my eyes. And you know, we're looking at this, and you're trying to figure out exactly what the plan is over the next couple of weeks now. You know, so we touched upon it last week that we don't think Brendan will get a new deal. It looks very much to me like this is a Peter Lawwell production now, in the sense that he's not going to be signing players on high money transfers, because he doesn't want to end up in that position where they are potentially with a manager that doesn't fancy them next season. You've also got a looming threat of a qualifier coming up now. I know you mentioned Bratislava, in that they've lost their first leg of their qualifier. It could actually be a trip to, I think it's Kazakhstan, is the other team you're potentially playing in the Champions League, which you wouldn't really want. What I will say, and what is probably going to work in Lawwell's favour with this, is the Champions League draw probably couldn't have went any better in terms of a draw against a team that you could expect to beat. Okay, I think he'll look at that and be rubbing his hands with glee, because he'll look at the current Celtic team and feel that is strong enough to get past what I believe will probably still end up being Bratislava after the two legs are been and done. And there's also a second point to this, and that is the fact Rangers once again looked very shaky on opening day of the season. I did watch most of their game, and they were pretty fortunate to come away with that with a point. Now, this shouldn't have any impact on what Celtic are doing, but invariably, all we can do is follow the trends that have happened under Peter Lawwell's watch, and ultimately, when Celtic tend to go big, it's when they sense a threat from Rangers. We're already one match into the season. Celtic have a lead in the league already over Rangers. You know, Rangers look from that opening day fixture that they may well not have addressed their issues with the other clubs in the league. Now, that might come back to bite us further down the line, but that will give Law some evidence there, I suspect, that he doesn't need to do as much because the opposition isn't as strong. And it's the usual sort of looking over the garden fence to see what's happening elsewhere, rather than just trying to improve what he has. And for Brendan Rodgers, that has to be the most infuriating part of this whole thing, is that he wants to take this club as far as he possibly can, not just domestically, but also in Europe. And he's not giving a monkey's what's going on at Ibrox. He couldn't care less what they were doing over there, whether they were signing Messi or whether they were blinking signing somebody from Stirling Albion. He wouldn't give a shit about that, and neither should Peter Lawwell or anybody at the football club. We need to be taking care of our own business. And I just wonder now, Russell, given the fact, as I say, going back to those 2 points that I'm kind of making, where we've got the favourable draw in the qualifier that we'd have wanted, and we've also now seen that Rangers have dropped points and look like they could be vulnerable again this season against the other teams. Is that perhaps setting a precedent here that Celtic will not go out over the next couple of weeks and spend money?
All I think is it points in a direction for them to feel more vindicated if they don't. I certainly think these are the plus points that they look for. Alternatively, you've got, if you're going to be paying all your attention on Rangers, which is a worry I think of a lot of people, I can see it in the chat, A lot of people think, I'm sick of them waiting for Rangers to react. There's Smell the Glove saying it right there. Look, fed up with Celtic waiting for the Huns to catch up. Again, at a point, do you know that? And if that is the case, do you know where you're going to be fucking found out to be even wrong there, Smell the Glove? This is the worrying bit for me. Not in a bad way, Smell the Glove. Get me out. I've got a feeling Rangers qualified for the Champions League. We don't accelerate our spending. Rangers will accelerate theirs if they qualify for the Champions League. I expect us to qualify for the Champions League with that draw. Right? But I don't believe it is as much of a walk in the park as the 5-0 win last year got us. I don't believe that. But I think the sad bit might be Smell the Glove. And they were actually we're almost giving them this strange, get out of jail card that, well, at least they go for it when Rangers come back. We might not even see that, mate. We might see Rangers qualify for the Champions League this year. Their sporting brand, whoever it is that runs them, 49ers go, well, okay, there's the revenues that come in from that. We gave an initial 20 million. We always promise the manager if he gets Champions League group stage, there's another, let's say, 10 to 15. Do you think Celtic will spend £33 million this summer?
I'm good to now. I don't think. I can't see any reason why they would do that.
So
now,
we're always clinging on to this hope that at least the board react at some point. And it's if Rangers are doing well. I'm beginning to think I'm not even sure that's the case.
Yeah, I don't.
That includes a reaction to them qualify for the Champions League, because I am absolutely assured in my way of thinking that they'll go to the window again. They'll go to the market, I should say, again, if they get that group stage qualification before it shuts. They'll go again. I think that's your 20 million is to get you to the Champions League. Oh shit, that sounds awfully forward thinking. I know you're saying about the league form, and I think that's definitely a worry as well, that form, but that result, Celtic see that and they go, see, nothing to worry about. Stop worrying about that shite. And people worried that Celtic could took the 86th minute at home on Flag Day to get past St Mirren. That's what you focus on. You're focused on fucking Rangers getting a draw with Motherwell. It frustrates me that. Were you at the game?
Yes, I was at the game, yeah. It was pretty flat performance. I genuinely didn't think the goal was going to be coming. And to be honest, we've gone to the second half. Once the McGregor one gets chopped off, we looked devoid of ideas. I agree with you on James Forrest. I felt he was probably the most likely of the players to actually look like something could happen. If it was going to happen, it might come through him. But the attacking options, particularly in the wide areas, need to be seriously looked at, because we don't have enough creative spark in there. On the basis of that performance, even for domestic football over the course of a 38-game season, never mind if you get into the Champions League when you're playing the elite clubs in Europe. And it's worrying that Celtic have found themselves in that position. Was I fully surprised about that, though, Russell?
No, I wasn't. Have they either?
Yeah, I wasn't surprised with how that game panned out at all. I fully expected St Mirren would make it difficult for us, and I fully expected, given the fact we hadn't strengthened as much as I felt we should have going into that game, that we might struggle to break them down if we didn't score early. And all of that proved to be the case. And, we've ended up getting both the goals, the one that just allows a shot from outside the box, and the one that actually is the winner ultimately from McCowan, is another pot shot from outside the box that takes a net on the way through. But at no point were we
peppering them by design, are they?
No, they're not like the most.
That's the thing. You've got to always give credit, especially I think Rodgers' first season. I know everyone talks about the Ange Bowl first year, but I think, and maybe it's because, I suppose both first seasons, Rodgers' first season, his first spell, and Ange's first season and his spell, they were such leaps from the year before, if that makes sense, right? You started seeing patterns of play. You started seeing what goals could look like, what Celtic goals could look like. I'm glad you flagged that, because the two strikes Celtic do put in the back of the net, they're not by design. That's not going to be no team in the world. That becomes their trademark goal. It's what we do. We scored 100 goals this season. 90 of them were strikes from the edge of the box. First time hits. That's not how it works. But you started seeing, and what I liked about Angie's ones, it was the cutback, obviously the Kyogo tapping. But you know, it was always that pass inside the fullback with the overlap and run inside the opposition fullback. And either it was the fullback doing it to the winger, or one of your number 10s doing it for your winger, or even the fullback yourself. They're at that byline cutting it back, and Kyogo's there for 3 yards tap in. You started seeing goals that you could go, it's almost a template Celtic goal there. And that's credit to Ange in that regard. That is credit, because that's an identity. And I think with Rodgers' first season, we started finding out what wingers cutting inside really looked like. That's when we found out, when Scotty Sinclair, I think he got 27 goals in his first season. And suddenly you've seen James Forrest. When Patrick Roberts had started the season, he's like, oh, I'll cut my left foot and have a ping, no problem. And Forrest suddenly picked up the ball, you know, I mean, metaphorically picked up the ball and went, that's a different way to play. Yeah, don't go always out in the outside as wingers. Fucking come in as wingers with just a one target guy up front. We hadn't really seen that before either. And it was wingers being able to either get dummy runs, overlapping runs from fullbacks, strikers creating space for the winger who's now stepping into the field. And they were using what you'd always associate a left winger before with a left foot, right winger with the right. We were now seeing the opposite. But if you put the left footer on the right, you're seeing them cut in, like Roberts could do in particular. And Scott Sinclair on the left, cutting him. At times he opened his body and scored. These weren't pot shots. These are all design. The movement you were seeing around it was design. And then, of course, what we ended up getting, of course, was boredom from the Celtic fans of our passing football. We were passing the ball too much, too square. And at times, I think we all shared that view. And I get that as well. But when I look back, we look at Saturday, I should say, not look back. When we look at Saturday, you're going, you're right, Jonathan, those goals weren't designed. That's not. It's like you're going to win games on a consistent basis and it'll be funny. These are football matches. I don't know, in 2025, this is a Celtic team that's going for its 4th Champions League campaign at home to St Mirren. And what we actually got when we played St Mirren, if you want a boxing analogy, was round 13 from the last day of last season. You know, it was like the 12 rounds had finished. Celtic had won a share of, got a split decision, got a draw, shall we say. It was a split decision win because Forrest got the goal. That's what it was, right? It was a split decision win for Celtic, albeit it was a draw because they couldn't get the unanimous decision, but you got the split decision because of the euphoria over Forrest's goal, right? Realistically, we went into that and it was round 13. And we got another 12 rounds of the exact same, but with Celtic getting a lucky sucker punch in the 12th. Now, you could argue championship rounds, that's what we do. It's the first day of the season. I want just a wee bit more. I don't think that's hard to ask. I go back to another thing, that I touched on in my earlier rant. You're at the game. We are desperate for a goal, of course. An injection, perhaps, of life. Here's the plus points about signing Yamada. Fastest player in Japan. Had a good goal scoring record 2 years ago. Not this season, but 2 years ago. Adam Ida panned for his performance. Unbelievable that the only striker we've signed since Kyogo left, didn't come on. What do you make of that?
I found that a bit bizarre, to be honest with you. Again, it's not even just what he's bringing over from Japan. He's also bringing a sense of the unknown in Scottish football because nobody will have seen a lot of this guy play. You don't know exactly what he's going to be able to do. St Mirren won't be fully prepared for him yet because we don't know what his full capabilities really are. And it's a game when you're crying out for a goal, you go towards your strikers that are on the bench because that's ultimately the most logical thing to do in most circumstances. And the fact that Brendan Rodgers has chosen not to do that suggests that he's not all that impressed either with the business that's been happening this summer at Celtic. And I think he kind of alluded almost to that in his pre-match presser. If you remember, when he does talk about not being the manager anymore, if it's just going to become a simple job of maintaining what Celtic have. And that was pretty much him pretty much telling the board directly at that point that I'm not going to be here next summer if you guys don't have any ambition beyond just trying to win the league each year in Scotland, which, given the fact that we have such large resources, is the bare minimum we should be looking to achieve each season. Whereas, for some reason, I always kind of think the board are now in a situation where that's almost kind of the be all and end all, and there's nothing else that Celtic can try and achieve within the game. But going back to the Mirren, it was flat. It wasn't particularly impressive at all. And I think it's a very valid point when you're going that long into the first game of the season before scoring, and you're going into a game, particularly when it's at home, without creating many clear-cut chances. I'm struggling to really think of a lot of clear-cut chances we had throughout that game outside of the disallowed goal.
There was the instance where it's hit the post twice.
Yeah.
And either of those would have been fortuitous, to be fair.
Yeah, this is what I mean. It wasn't one of those games where it felt like we
were as well. What was the mood like? Because I like the vantage point of watching football. I'll be honest with replays, and I like someone talking me through it. I don't necessarily need to agree with the person, but sometimes that can stimulate me when I'm hearing commentary that I disagree with what I'm watching. It can sort of laser focus me. And other times I like to be able to see something 2 or 3 times. And I feel sometimes I'm at the game. My biggest issue with going to the games is swung by those around me that, rightfully so, of course, are so biased. It's unreal. And I end up not being able to watch it, but like sort of any sort of balance whatsoever, which I suppose defeats the purpose of going to support the team. But you know what I mean? I watch it and I maybe don't come away with actual takes that I like to have, not because of the podcast, just in general. That's how I like to watch football. But what was the mood like around you, Jonathan? There couldn't be too much happy clapping going on, I wouldn't have imagined, on Sunday.
No, there wasn't too much happy clapping. I wouldn't say it was overly frustration though either. I think there was a good bit of support given that it was the first game of the season.
Yes.
And obviously, everybody wanted to get off to that good start. You don't really want to be too much on the players' backs because all of these players, it's not their fault that they're still playing. The frustration really lies further up with the club. But I think if those types of performances continue, undoubtedly that frustration will become more apparent in the stands. There was definitely a lot of groaning towards the end when things weren't really coming off. We didn't look like we had answers. Ball probably wasn't getting played as fast as it could have been to get us up the park, and certainly around me there was a lot of question marks over the play that was going on in the wide areas. Aside from Forrest, who, as I say, was one of the brighter sparks, but again, it doesn't say an awful lot for Celtic in 2025 when an ageing James Forrest is still the guy that you're turning to try and win a lot of these.
Is it right to just keep saying the ageing James Forrest? Or is it not just accept he's part of the squad, whether he's 34 or whether he's fucking 24? He's got a role in the team. Here's the other way to look at it. We made a signing. JSP comes in, Jonathan.
Mm-hmm.
What age is he?
He's in his 20s, isn't he?
20? No.
Oh, the new side, the centre back. Oh, yeah, he's 20.
Who are you talking about?
I know you went JSP. I'm trying to work it because fuck JSP is fucking heavy as riddles.
That's what Celtic's calling him. JSP, mate. JSP. You know what I'm doing? 19, says Alistair Jack. There we go. He's always right in there. He's like Rain Man, Alistair Jack. I love it. 19 is a Green Days as well. 19. Thank you. Thank you very much for just getting. I thought 20. So, what way do you want it? Are we going to rely on a 19-year-old guy to partner Cameron Carter-Vickers at centre back for a 35 million bounty couple of fixtures? Is that fair? Is that not because you can't have it both ways? Or you've got a guy with 17 years or whatever it is, 16 years of first team experience with Celtic, a goal at the very least in each of them, who comes on and can still change a game. The aging thing, I'm not picking on you, don't take it that way. It's I think how he's categorized so much, and then I go, well, you can't have things both ways. Michelle says we shouldn't have a 34-year-old come on and change impact the game. I mean, Lubomir Moravchik was pretty good at it. Lubo was pretty good at that. 34-year-olds coming on to change and impact games. If you look throughout Europe, this is a game where sometimes I do get frustrated with, and I don't mean Michelle per se, by the way, of course, but I get frustrated with Celtic fans, whereas you sign a player of this profile, why would you get one of that? There's almost gets to the stage where every profile or every type of player we look at, we find a reason for when it went for that type. And then when we've got them in the door, the bona fide legends of the club, they quite clearly, your eyes aren't lying. When they come on, they make an impact. We say, well, that shouldn't happen. I give up. I think it's time to accept that what Forrest contributes in the park is as much, I've said this before, as much as I think he's an absolute horrible, horrible bastard. I think like the most horrible bastard in the world, Ryan Giggs. But what he brought to Man United at 34, let alone 39, was nothing short of remarkable. From being a winger, his game intelligence improved. He started getting more starts. If you remember the Champions League final in 1999 when he was 26, peak Ryan Giggs, you think? Who started on the left wing for Man U? Jesper Blomqvist. Ryan Giggs did start, but he started to think on the right and Beckham played in the middle. But the fact that Ryan Giggs is pushed to the right tells you this guy's probably, that's not too dissimilar to a Forrest. You know, you're getting shifted here to there, you know, in his mid-20s. Your role could still become just as important as you get older. In fact, become more important as you get older in different ways. I think that tag, I'm kind of sick of it for us. I think it's time that we just go, do you know what? Do you want him in the first team squad or not? I fucking do. And I'm certainly going to take him out of it based on age. Because his contribution, I know for a fact this season, if he stays fit, of course, if he stays fit, you'll see numbers. No two ways about it. Or what you will see that the statos won't like so much, Jonathan, is you'll see changes of momentum in football matches when he comes off the bench, for example. I think we've seen that at the weekend. So I'm not pulling you up so much on the agent thing. I think it's just, it's rife around the place. You're going, well, is he a good player or is he not? Is he a good option to have? For me, he is.
Yeah, of course he's a good option to have. And I think the frustration on a lot of it just boils down to the fact there should be more options in there of a higher quality. And undoubtedly, Forrest has a role to play within the team. He's within the squad. He's done it. He's done it plenty of times in the past for many years, and he does have that ability off the bench to change games. I think the frustration more lies with the fact, why don't we have many other wingers that are actually able to do that? And perhaps Forrest then gets it a little bit tighter because he is a little bit older, and he has quite often been a whipping boy in amongst the support and over those years as well. But perhaps that does kind of play in people's minds slightly. But when you're looking at it, the situation with Celtic is whether Forrest is 34 or 24, it doesn't really matter as much about the age. The bottom line is there's not enough options on the wide areas for Celtic, and it's the point I'm trying to make. And I think when you're looking at Forrest, the one thing I would say about him is you're probably not going to get as much time out of him now as you would maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, because one of his biggest attributes is his pace, which ultimately will slow down a little bit as he gets older.
What do you make of
now,
it
that
so
doesn't
far?
mean he couldn't adapt. Yeah, sorry.
Do you think he's slowed down so far?
I think he's lost half a yard. I would say so.
I would say half a yard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say.
What?
I would say, and to play devil's advocate and kind of play the other side of this, you do have a lot more footballers now that are going much further into their careers because people are looking after their bodies a lot better now as professional footballers than they were 20, 30 years ago. So there's there's absolutely no reason that if Forrest could manage himself in that respect, they could still go for another 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 years at Celtic in more of a bit part role as he gets older. And it's one of those ones where I think as long as there's enough players there that are able to kind of carry the mantle and assist and actually bring more to the first team, then having Forrest there as an option when things maybe aren't going as well or you're needing to try something different isn't a bad option to have. What I wouldn't want, though, is Celtic becoming overly dependent on James Forrest off the bench every week to change the game
You wouldn't want that
based on
bench coming off
his
the bench.
abilities. What's
You wouldn't
that?
want, you wouldn't want Celtic to be basing a lot of their faith on someone having to come off the bench. Surely that just goes across the board.
Yeah, well, this is it. You want to have options, and I just don't feel Celtic have enough options in that area out wide. I think is where the main issue is. The
Why do you
options
think
out wide.
Young started ahead of him?
I'm at a loss with Yang, to be honest with you. I don't think he brings an awful lot to the
16
table.
and 6 goals.
Yeah, I've not seen enough from Yang that makes me think he really has a sustained future
Come on.
at Celtic.
No. You knew he didn't. You know he doesn't.
Mhm.
I said within weeks of seeing him, I think his first few appearances, I think it was, me and Terry were baffled. Well, I was baffled at, maybe Terry try to condone some of his displays, or try to be kind, shall we say. Just his kind spirit coming out. We'll give Terry his benefit of the doubt, because I knew he wasn't a Celtic player. And I go back to it. He committed the ultimate crime at Ibrox, where he gave up when a player turned him inside out. He gave up. That curling shot went in the far corner, and that was Yang then. So I then wonder how long this experiment goes on for. And what I wonder more is, see, for all the things we're saying about James Forrest, right? See, whilst there is no other option, did you honestly think Yang's a better player than James Forrest? Whether he's fucking 34 or 104, but right now he is 34 version of James Forrest. James is a better option to start the game. If you can't get that board, and Brendan, of course, we've seen the presser Friday, I thought it was quite interesting, a lot of his words. I quite like them, though, to be honest. He doesn't think he's been convincing. He's not doing a good enough job of convincing the board of the strength that he thinks the first team requires. Well, the one thing I do trust Brendan on normally is his eyes with what he's got in front of him to pick the best team. Now, we can't put this down to fitness. James not had any hiccups whatsoever that's been reported. James has to be starting ahead of Yang right now. Has to, mate. Whilst that's the only options we've got. You cannot tell me this guy has been given time after time, chance after chance, opportunity after opportunity. He provides fuck all. His tracking back compared to Maeda is embarrassing. And do you know what? It's bad. He's tracking back compared to James Forrest. Isn't it embarrassing? He gets the ball. He does it. You don't feel confident he's going to retain possession. You know, when you get someone as you go, they're playing safe. They're annoying me because they're playing safe. He's not even good at playing safe. And it might sound personal. It's not personal. Yeah, I don't know the guy for Adam. And he's made plenty of money off the club that I absolutely don't on it. And that every single person watching this chat does. That pay his wages. So he's done okay. What comes of that is criticism if you're not doing a great job. So deal with it before people get all upset about, oh, don't pick on just Yang. Monkeys, mate. See, if I watch someone playing football and I don't think they're particularly very good at it, and in the case of Yang, I don't think they've been even close to the level that we're looking for at Celtic. My brain spins, not in a good way, at how he consistently seems to be getting chance after chance at Celtic. But I think in other occasions or other instances, players have been more ruthlessly dealt with. For example, did someone like Yang make a massive departure in terms of outstanding displays at the start, or a massive departure in terms of level of performance, I should say, than a Thiago did when he joined Celtic?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so.
I don't think
Yeah,
so. I
one
think
gets been quick. Nawrocki, gone. Did Nawrocki or Yang look better in the first 5 Celtic appearances?
yeah, this is it. I mean, it was
These guys
Narovski
are getting
as well.
bombed, ruthless aggression towards getting rid of these players when they don't seem to be up to it. Sharpish. Lagerbielka, not up to it, gone. Yang, 60 games in a Celtic shirt. He's going to make 100 appearances for Celtic at this rate. This is incredible, mate, for a guy with that ability. And it's damning on what the board did. Just one other thing as well. Have you got any thoughts on that? Sorry, before we move on.
Well, I think it just goes back to the point that we need to get wingers in. It really does. And I think we've all known that Yang's not the answer for a very long time. I think he had that little purple patch when his misses was over for a couple of games. Outside of that, he's done absolutely nothing in terms of contribution to the squad. And it just goes back to the point I was making at the start, where we really need a few signings, and we probably need two wingers. And for me, and I just don't think Celtic will live up to that side of the bargain that Brendan will be wanting there with the wide men. But that's ultimately going to be our Achilles heel this season. And if we are stuck in a position where we only have options like Yang to either start matches or have to come off the bench where required, then we're in a bit of stormy waters, shall we say? And we need to make sure we're not finding ourselves in that position. And the fact we are now started a new season when this problem has been known about for months and months and months is quite frankly ridiculous, and is pretty damning on everyone at the football club, because I don't see how you can look at the situation we find ourselves in now and think, oh yeah, we can run with these wingers that we have just now. And maybe they're thinking because they'll get Jota back halfway through the season, that all will be fine and well. But you just don't know when he'll be back playing. And even if you were going to take that gamble, which sounds exactly like the kind of thing Celtic might well do, then you're gambling half your season straight off the bat with one winger down that is of a quality that can come into the team immediately and make an impact in Jota. But you've not got him until probably January time. So then you're relying on Yang being enough to get you through until then.
That's not acceptable. I think one winger for me would be enough.
You could probably argue that because you've got Jota there.
And the striker decision has to obviously be done. That's me expecting a striker, of course.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, again, you're expecting a striker.
You go two wingers, and you put Maeda now ahead of Vida.
Yeah.
Vida would be your second choice. I think fine second choice. Rotated striker. Very much like John Hartson in his first year at Celtic. People forget that. Go back. Not everything was covered as much, maybe in the 2001-2002 season, as what it is now. John Hartson struggled big time at first to get in that Celtic. In fact, for months to get in the Celtic. And no one was sure about John Hartson. And he's $6.5 million fee, which, by the way, would dwarf what £9 million is 25 years or 24 years later. Let's have that right as well. He does a fine option to have, provided you have another fine option to go alongside him. And when Yamada can't get in, that doesn't mean that. Maeda, though, for me, I liked what I seen with him through the middle. So I'm okay with him moving there if it's two wingers signed or it's a winger and a forward. But
do you think we'll get both? Do you think we'll get both, though?
They have to get a winger and a striker, Jonathan. They just simply have to. But will they do it before the Champions League deadline? Now, the CQN were very keen to point out that people forget how successful teams run. People forget that last year, from the 6th of August to the close of the window, we spent £27 million on players, won a League Cup, a league, and knockout stage, they called it, which is very clever terminology, Peter. CQN, sorry. What's his name? Paul. Paul's Peters. You get them confused so easy. And he says knockout football of the Champions League. Now, I know what he's doing with the wordplay. Technically, he's right. It's not the knockout stage. We all know that. But we're in the halfway house of knockout football, the halfway house of what You
In the
clarify
playoffs,
it.
essentially, is what.
We're in the last 24, not the one that all the teams go into that have done well in the mid bit. The teams that the section that some of the teams have to go into. It's not quite reaching that last 16. You know the one I mean. But anyway, that sort of sycophantic bullshit is what gets the football club nowhere. And what worries me is that he's missing the point that last summer, Paul, we did not have Champions League qualifiers. And if anyone wants to start smirking at a team with Bratislava in their name as being a gimme, then I take you back to the last time I seen downsizing at Celtic. Guess who was the chief exec? Guess when Peter Lawwell really was coming to the fore, and that's when he got his first manager of choice. That was Gordon Strachan. Am I not right in thinking it was an Artmetia Bratislava that we played then? And we got pummeled 5-0 away from home. Now, I'm not predicting that to happen, guys. I'm not. What I'm trying to say, though, is it's so important that you realise is never disrespect the tournament that hosts the big boys. Now, what you also need to remember is, last year we destroyed Slaven Bratislava, yeah? 5-0?
5-1, yeah.
5-1, sorry. Well done. 5-1. How were they in that last 32?
Well, they must have came through a qualifier, must know.
They must have navigated qualifiers. Never count your chickens based on previous results, because there's always another previous result you can go back to that'll make you look like a fanny. What's your thoughts on that? Do you think there is a wee bit of already? Smell the glove says 5-0. Is it 5? Oh, he's maybe talking about Armenia. He'll be thinking of Armenia, the Armenia game. It's fine. His comments from earlier, the other Bratislava. But yeah, what do you make of that when you look at it and you go, imagine being that overly confident and it all going Pete Tong. Why do it? Why leave it to chance?
Yeah, and I always kind of feel when you get into these positions with Celtic where you become overwhelming favourites in a qualifier and then you're setting yourself up for disappointment, and it becomes a bit of almost a lose-lose situation there, because if you go through, that was just what was expected, and if you go out, it's an absolute catastrophe because nobody was expecting that to happen, and then the shouting from the stands will only intensify. But by that point, the horse will have bolted, and Celtic will then have to adapt to Europa League football, and then the prospect of not being able to bring in the same standard of player they may well have been able to get in if they'd been more proactive earlier on in this window. Because if you bring the players in now, you tell them they've got one qualifier to negotiate. This is what we've done last year in the Champions League. There's a stack of evidence there that we can perform at that level based on last season. We're going to get better and stronger this year, and we're going to give it more of a bash to try and get to the last 16. It was actually such an easy sell in terms of where we were last season to what we're looking to accomplish now in Europe, that for me, Brendan Rodgers must be banging his head against a brick wall because he can't believe how ridiculous this situation is. This is getting to a point where it's almost as bad as the signings that were getting made when he decided to walk last time around. And I'll tell you another thing, Russell. I think there's an element of Celtic fans now that would probably understand it. Now, I'm not saying this will happen. It won't. But if Brendan wants to end up walking before the end of the season because he doesn't feel he's been back properly in the summer, I think there's actually a lot of Celtic fans out there. You know what? You're actually right. You know, you've came in, you've tried your best to take Celtic forward. You've made progress in Europe from where you were last time you were here. You've still delivered domestic success again this time around. And then you've actually just had all that thrown in your face this summer by a Celtic board that are refusing to back you, refusing to bring the players in you need, refusing as well, interestingly, to offer him a new contract based on what was said in the press as well, or they certainly haven't got round to offering a new contract as of yet. So there's a lot of frustration there, and Celtic are setting themselves up for a fall. But make no bones about it, you know, they may have got a favourable draw and they may well get through Bratislava, but then that doesn't give you much time. Even in the best case scenario, we get through Bratislava, which I think both of us expect us to, along with most fans. Then you're in a situation where you've only got a week left of the window before that.
Whatever happened? Oh, go on. Sorry, finish.
And you're actually going to also be playing Rangers at Ibrox, I think, on the 31st of August. And we've already found out last season Rangers have got infinitely better against us, and we've not had answers against Rangers the last few times we've played them. And we're going into that significantly weaker than we did last season against a Rangers team that, dare I say it, may have a number. And we've just decided not to address any of it. Baffling.
What the fuck ever happened as well, Jonathan, to the best possible version of Celtic on the park being our objective as a board of directors? Their job is to support the football operation on the park to the best of their ability and keep their customer base as satisfied with the product they continue to invest in the whole way throughout. Yes, we'll keep money for rainy days. But as we've discussed, Jonathan, when Celtic dictate when the rainy day comes, you can't trust the weather. The second thing is, I expect them to have provisions for things like new training grounds, for things like stadium repairs, perhaps increasing the stadium. But again, there's no word of any of this bollocks. So let's go back to it. That money sits there doing fuck all. Right, fine. I want to see more and more of it invested in the product I continue investing to watching the park at increasing prices, because you're downgrading your price that you're willing to pay for the product in the park while increasing the cost of the customer to view it. That makes no sense. No one understands this. No one seems to get this, because the conditioning of 20 years of this same regime has managed to get people's minds changed in their thinking of what it is to be a football club. People don't view Celtic as a football team as much anymore. Even the fans don't. Some view it as, I'd be cagey about money. People bitch and moan now when we break a record twice last summer. They moan about it. Fergus McCann did it regularly.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those ones you've got to be able to go and buy the players you need to get. And as we've talked about many times on here, with the way inflation goes, everything else has gone up around the world in terms of costs of everything. And that is included in your prices for tickets, etc. I think about 38 quid for St Mirren just for a general sale ticket. The season ticket holders are probably looking at £40 a pop. Again, they are based on that basis. And what are they getting back for that? Very, very little from Celtic. In fact, what they've done instead was, and there's just no brass neck here at all, they actually released, was it Kieran Tierney memorabilia ahead of the opening day of the season for people to buy Kieran Tierney mugs, Kieran Tierney t-shirts. It just sometimes feels like they're just so emphasized.
That's a very funny choice.
Yeah, mugs is a very funny, ironic choice. I don't think that was by design on their part, but it's got to be a case where you're looking at it and thinking, if they're going to end up in a situation where they're willing to flog all the different merchandise every other week, that they would at least be willing to put something back into the club and making sure the squad is as strong as it is, and then people wouldn't care. But people getting fucked off with this as well.
What is the point? Like, I think everyone's forgot this is sport. This is a sport. I want to see the best sporting team version of Celtic on the park. That is what I want. And whatever that costs to do that, I expect the money men to be able to ration the funds appropriately, whereas we will not be even on the brink of going bust, but able to substantiate and quality-wise improve on it year upon year, window upon window. We're not doing that. We consistently don't do it. It is a very continuous trait of a Celtic run by Peter Lawwell. That bank balance going up is not a trophy. The spreadsheet isn't a trophy. I just don't think folk get it yet. Or it's not that they don't get it. They've had it drilled into them the other side, the other way of thinking. and they don't realise they're missing the whole point of Celtic. Why you're into Celtic? The best version of Celtic is what you want to see in the park. No one wants us to go bust doing it. No one's saying that. But you do everything you can. You squeeze every penny. Do you know what, guys? This is the most we could contribute to that team this year. We have really went to the wire for you. When was the last time? When was the last time you felt Celtic have done ever be able to look in a mirror and say, but you know what? I know we did it in this window. Fucking gave it. We've given that manager everything. Given the fans everything we've got, guys. We have went right to. Do you know what? We'll be all right. But we took more risks than I thought we would. Nah. Nothing's. It's not even risk averse, Jonathan. It's so far away from risk averse. It's so like it's not even close to being risk averse to describe it. It's a million miles away from risk averse what we're doing. How can you accept this? How can you not understand anymore why you got into football? Why you got into any sport in your life? How do folk not get that anymore? That's what worries me. I'm like, do you like Celtic as a business? Is that like Celtic PLC? Is that like your thing? So I picked up a football when I was young. So I asked for a Celtic shirt and demanded Dad got me one as a little cheeky bastard at 8 years old. It wasn't because I thought, Jake Fergus McCann's balancing the books at the same time, Dad. Funnily enough, Eagle, I'll tell you a story. He's getting booed whilst he does, and he invests and he breaks records of Celtic's expenditure year on year. Fergus McCann broke transfer records. He was the British transfer record signing Alan Stubbs. He was signing the first ever player to play for East and West Germany, and Andreas Tom for over £2 million. These fees were getting done, Jonathan, with minimal season tickets compared to now. Minimal sponsorship deals, minimal merchandise deals. Not 3 shirts, 4 shirts, all the training gear a season. 1 home shirt every 2 years, an away shirt every other 2 years. That's what he was doing it on. And
and no Champions League money either.
No Champions League money. Yeah, he's still left with profit. People need to wake up here. You're not seeing the best football team that you're supposed to support on the park. The best version of that you are not being given by the board of directors whose job it is to support it. But you are getting is a board of directors that ensure they get all the bonuses year on year. And have a mountain of cash that you don't even have the gumption to demand en masse to get explanations for having. That, to me, is damning, mate.
It's incredible that they've ended up in a situation like this. It just feels like Groundhog Day. Anytime you have a transfer window comes up, we feel like we're talking about the same things each and every time, and then you end up right down to the wire, and it becomes a mad dash. Will we sign someone? Will we not sign someone? Could be a loan, could be some absolute shite that we've never heard of, their £1.5 million project. But it's very rarely that you're getting a finished article later on in the window. And ultimately, we don't need to be leaving our business as late as that. You know, Russell, when we're looking at it now, is this position savable from the board? Do you think, is this window savable from the board when you're looking at it now? If they are to go out and bring a couple in, or would there still be, to use a bad taste in the mouth over how long it's taken to get the deals done if, in the best case scenario, there is a couple big name signings to follow in the next couple of weeks?
But Al comes in, he says, it's great to hear someone speaking from the heart and having the balls to, and that's why, Al, we were saying at the top of the show on the bus that we've turned down our nomination or offer to nominate ourselves for the Football Content Awards, which I know get a lot of people pretty excited year on year and call them European Cups. We've turned that down because we're not going to be, denied being able to say what we want or compromised in our thoughts going, that could affect votes. We will speak from the heart and have the balls. So I'm glad you can recognise that, mate. What was your question?
I'm asking, do you think this window is still salvageable from the board's point of view? If they were to go out, say, and do,
of course it
let's
is.
just say they do 2 or 3, 6, 7 million pound signings. Of
course it is, Jonathan. Jonathan, right? Of course it is, right? But here's the other side of it. Adamida and Ingles didn't get the pre-seasons that they should have got if they were designated targets. I happen to argue as well, you get either for, I think, 65%, say something like that, 2/3 of the price we could have got him if we bought him earlier. Ingles one, I'm not so sure of. I think we get a Bundesliga player for 11 million, top 5 league in Europe, but maybe top 3 league in Europe, and who had
Good business, I would say.
and was already in the Belgium international scene. I think 11 million is cheap, right?
Yeah.
People could argue.
Good business.
I think they want, fucking. I think they thought we were signing. I don't know.
Fucking prime Andrea Pirlo or something.
Yeah, like, do you know what I mean? Like the new De Bruyne. You know what I mean? You're going, come on, guys. But the board are going to use this window, I think, as a stick to beat Rodgers' transfer dealings with. But Rodgers is the real weapon we've got is, and he alluded to it on Friday, and that was we brought in players I knew be able to influence at the Champions League level, and I think they did that. Words that I'm paraphrasing slightly, and he's right. Celtic, if Mr. CQ ends listening, Peter, we made the knockout phases. I don't even call it knockout phases. I think it's the halfway house between the real knockout rounds, right? But that's far more progress than we've done in the Champions League in so long. Far more. So that tells me the signings to a degree were a success.
Some very good results along the way.
We invested more, and we took Bayern Munich to the last kick of a ball. Martin O'Neill-esque departure for the Champions League. We talk about those as glory years. That was as close to that as what we had. Fun enough, it's with that more investment. So don't let them use it as a stick to beat you with when the results don't fucking lie. And the Champions League campaign didn't lie. However, since then, we've decided to go back down the road of selling. And when you see Nicholas Kuhn go, and you see Kyogo go in the January, when most of our points were in the board in the Champions League before Kyogo left, Nicholas Kuhn leaves after scoring the goal scorer away to Bayern that levelled the tie for such a great period of the two legs that you felt maybe this could be one of our famous results coming back to the good old days. When they're not replaced, stop accepting it. Stop accepting it. Start expecting your club to treat the Champions League with the same respect they want you to respect them in terms of increasing your investment in them year on year. Buy this, buy that. Remember you're half Irish. Buy this next Irish gimmick. Sambas. Oh, everyone loves Sambas. Buy Sambas. I'm amazed they've not done a Celtic Oasis collection. I'm amazed.
Yeah, that seemed like almost an open goal, that one.
Because the Celtic View did do Noel Gallagher on the front cover, if you remember. I think it was 2001. He went to watch the game. I'm amazed they've not played on that more. Amazed.
Well, Oasis are on at the weekend, Russell, so you never know. Maybe they're holding back till Friday.
Yeah, yes. Well, I think more people would be rather going to Edinburgh to watch football than they will be Glasgow if we don't continue, or we don't start acting like the biggest club, let alone in Glasgow, but in Scotland, as it should be. I look at Hibs, for example. You talk about Edinburgh, who really are acting like a big club. They sell a player for $3.5 million. They're looking at a player for over $1 million. That almost looks like, if I put that as a percentage, Jonathan, like selling a player for 30 million, looking at a 10 million one to replace.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do that. No. We don't have that sort of forward thinking. Anyway, I feel like we've ranted enough. The last thing I wanted your thoughts on, just to go back to Saturday, is handball rule. Where are you on that? I know it seems like I've gone way off piece, but I'm so confused. I think the McGregor one, the more I watch it, I can see why it's disallowed. But then should we have had the penalty then? Do you think both decisions are right?
I mean, I'm at a loss with the handball rule. No, I really am. I don't understand it. It feels like it's very much pot luck with it. I think we need clarity on it. I felt the McGregor one. You could probably argue it's maybe a handball, but for me, it's quite high up. I thought where it actually strikes his arm was okay, but I think it's very hard to really know for sure what the actual rule is on that one. Likewise with penalty again, it's another one of those ones where it just feels like at the minute you're flipping a coin in terms of anyone knowing what the right decision is for these types of moments, which shouldn't be the case, of course. And I don't really know how they go about ironing that out in terms of a handball, because you can't really just have it in a situation where if it hits somebody's hand, it's a blanket fill, because that's not particularly fair either. But then you do enter into these realms of grey areas with accidental handballs, how high up the arm it hits, and that it puts everyone in a tricky situation. I think you'd have heard a lot more about that if obviously we hadn't got the late winner. But I would imagine when it comes to Scottish football and the handball decisions, you'll no doubt see again this season that there's going to be a lot of inconsistencies there. I would hazard a guess at.
I think that's fair. I think that's
you
fair.
know.
I think we would have made, a bigger deal of it had we not won the game.
I would agree with that. I think we
But it will keep coming up. It will keep coming up. Maybe it's time just to make a wee mental note of the ones that go for you, go against you, and we'll see how it goes this season. Johnston, I cannot thank you enough for tonight. It's been great. Thank you for putting up with my ranting.
It's been good fun. It's been good to hear all your rants.
As always.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone in the chat has been very lively. Way over 130 all night. Over 150 at one point. We can't thank you enough for always tuning in to the bus. We are getting out of here right now. It's a good night from us. And I'll be back with the judge on Thursday.